Welcome to today's secondary staff meeting. Our focus today is going to be on the role of data in addressing the literacy demands across the curriculum at all levels. So although you might be looking today just at the Year 9 cohort, for example, as a snapshot, we're thinking about literacy right through from Year 7 to 12 and the skills that students require in all disciplines. Our learning intention today is to further develop our shared understanding and language around what some of the literacy data is telling us and what we can do about it. So this is just an initial look at the data to get us thinking about how we are going to address those demands and how we're going to be specific about doing that. So by the end of this time, you will be able to explain the importance of addressing literacy demands across the curriculum. It's very important that all of us have that same approach and belief in ensuring that we do support students in their literacy, not just in English, but in every area of the curriculum. That you are able to understand some of the relevant data sets to you in your teaching and collect and use relevant data with a purpose. And that purpose, of course, is to improve student learning outcomes. Just a reminder about the FISO, so the Framework for Improving Student Outcomes. We use the improvement cycle, which helps us to analyse our data, to set goals, work out what we're going to do to address those, put some things in place, and of course monitor to see what the impact has been. And if we are not seeing the impact that we should be, then we change our practice. When doing our planning and linking that to our understanding of what the data is telling us about our students, we of course always come back to these key questions from Dufour's. What do we want our students to learn? Of course, related to the curriculum. How do we know each student has learnt it? So what will we be looking for? How do we respond when students do not learn? How can we extend and enrich the learning for students who have demonstrated proficiency? And for us to be able to address those 4 questions, we need to take the time to look at data accurately. This is some data for our VCE studies. We are the red bars, and this is showing the number of students receiving those various assessment grades along the bottom. So you'll see for us, our highest percent of assessment grades are falling in around the C, D plus D-ish area. We can also compare that to all schools, so the orange, and then also having a look at the school sector, so for us government, and also in our school region. So obviously, that as a snapshot is not where we want our assessment grades to be for our VCE studies. We obviously want to shift that to the left and have our bars much higher at that other end. If we go back and have a look through the VCE examiners' reports for all of the different areas and we compare the literacy related learning issues, it's quite interesting to see the commonalities and the literacy skills that students are requiring to meet the demands of those subjects. We often think about our subjects in isolation, but when we look at the literacy, there is a lot of crossover and there's a lot of transferable skills. And if we are collaborative in addressing those, then it's going to help the students far more than if we look at those in isolation. So if we have a look at psychology, for example, the key literacy learning issues from that area are inference, comprehension, sentence structure, academic vocabulary, and reading the whole question. So students might know and understand the content, but when they're coming to answering the exam questions, this is where they're really struggling. So they're not getting the scores that might reflect their content knowledge. Having a look at English now. Deep comprehension, paragraph structure, meta-language, sentence development, paraphrasing, vocab, topic, sentences, paragraph structure. In any of the other subjects where students need to write extended responses, they would also be requiring those same literacy skills. PE, vocab, comprehension, sentence development. So again, similar to English and psychology. Biology, again, we're seeing more similarities now, the vocab, the comprehension and sentence structure, along with the mechanics. Studio arts, again, very similar. So if we have a look now at our Year 9 cohort, just a snapshot in terms of comprehension from the PAT reading test, we can see that there are 4 main areas that this PAT test is having a look at. It's looking at retrieving directly stated information, interpreting by making inferences, interpreting explicit information, and reflecting on text. So along the bottom of this graph, it has each question number, and the coloured bar obviously indicates which type of question it is, and along the top there is a score related to the question difficulty. So if we have a look at the questions that we had the least number of correct responses in, you'll see inferring is there, and also interpreting explicit information has a low number of correct responses. Retrieving directly stated information wasn't too bad. Reflecting on text had the highest number of correct responses for 2 of those questions. And obviously in terms of skill, inferring tends to be much more difficult for students. We're going to have a look at another piece of data now that you'll be working with. It has codes along the top, and I just wanted to share that this is what the codes relate to. So retrieving directly stated information is just labelled as RI, interpreting explicit information IE, interpreting implied information as II, and reflecting on the text as RF. You can refer back to this to help you understand what the skills are around those 4 areas, and where the vocabulary fits in, where structure fits in, the type of language, etc. So this is the main data set that you will be working with. We call this an item analysis. So down the left you'll see students' names, and all of the green boxes are the questions that were correct and all of the red were incorrect, and in the red boxes the letters tell you which answer the students selected. Up the top, it has the question number, the difficulty, the classification, so what we looked at just before on the other graph, and you can work out from each question what the skill was. So for example, the first column here, the correct answer was A. So question 1, if we go to the top here, RI was that type of question. Question 2, correct answer was D. If we have a look at the top here, we can see that question 2 was also an RI question. Okay, so again, you can go back. So RI is the retrieving directly stated information, and that will tell you about the skills involved for the student to be able to answer that type of question. This is just a snapshot. So this obviously isn't our whole Year 9 cohort. We have just selected some students as a starting point to think about what are the common themes that we are seeing here for students, and to give us a starting point about how we might begin to address those in our teaching and across the different disciplines. For each student, it is very interesting to have a look and see their individual responses. John completed the first 7 questions, and then that was it. It's also interesting to have a look at, where a lot of the red falls. You see a lot of green here, and then a lot of red. Over here on the side, you don't need to worry about this information, the scale or the stay9. The score is just the number of questions that they got correct. So, be alert but not alarmed. Having a look at those 3 pieces of data, the VCE study assessment grades, where we had a huge number falling in that D+ area, the bar graph, which showed that inferring seems to be an issue for our students, which is a higher level skill, and then the item analysis, where again we're seeing the green and the red and the variance for each student. So be alert. It's important that we are fully aware of our data and where our students are at, but that we are in a position to do something about that. And we want that to be systematic. We need to make sure that as a collaborative group, we look at the literacy demands across the curriculum. We look at how we can support students in each of their subject areas, so that they are developing those skills to a really deep knowledge, and see that they are transferable skills. There will be differences in each of the subject areas, but there will also be similarities, and we want them to transfer those skills. We see this in other areas where they have a systematic approach, and then there is a systemic outcome. So what are you going to do about it now? Having a look at this data in collaborative teams, we need to have a think about what will happen at a cohort level, what's going to happen at a subject or specialization level, and what will happen at an individual level for students. So what are we doing about it as a Year 9 team? What are we doing about it as a science team or a maths team or an English team? And what am I going to do about it as an individual teacher with individual students in my classroom? How am I going to support them at that level to ensure that we are helping them to develop those literacy skills that are clearly such an issue for us at the moment?